The call came from my doctor's office at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Mr. Thompson, I'm calling about the guardianship paperwork your daughter submitted. I need to clarify some medical information she provided. I was sitting in my study, reviewing my investment portfolio like I did every Tuesday morning for the past 40 years. What guardianship paperwork? Silence. Then, Mr. Thompson, your daughter Jessica filed a petition for legal guardianship 3 weeks ago. She cited progressive cognitive decline and attached medical documentation stating you're unable to manage your own affairs. I set down my coffee cup with precision of 4 decades, analyzing risk. I haven't seen a doctor in 8 months. My last physical showed perfect cognitive function. That's concerning. The documents she submitted are dated 2 weeks ago and signed by Dr. Martin Chun. I've never heard of Dr. Martin Chun. My physician is Dr. Sarah Williams at Riverside Medical. Another pause. Mr. Thompson, I think you need to contact an attorney immediately. 40 years as a senior vice president at First National Bank taught me one critical skill: recognize fraud patterns. I pulled out my leather notebook, 40 years of daily entries, every suspicious transaction logged, every red flag documented. This was my red flag list, the same list that had caught $47 million in fraud during my career. I opened to a blank page and wrote, Red flag analysis, Jessica Thompson. Flag 1, forged medical documentation. Flag 2, doctor I've never met. Flag 3, guardianship file without my knowledge. Flag 4, timeline, 3 weeks before I'm notified. I thought about the past 6 months. Jessica's sudden frequent visits after 3 years of minimal contact since Helen died. Her insistence on helping with my finances. Her comments about me forgetting things I'd never forgotten. The way she started bringing her husband Mark to our meetings, always with a notepad, always writing down what I said. Building a case. Flag 5, establishing pattern of incompetence through witnesses. I'd seen this before. Account holders whose relatives documented every mistake, every slip, every normal moment of forgetting where you put your keys, then use it to claim incompetence and seize control of assets. I grabbed my phone and called my attorney, David Martinez. David, I need you to pull a guardianship petition filed by my daughter Jessica, and I need you to do it quietly. 2 hours later, I was sitting in David's office with documents spread across his conference table. Richard, this is worse than I thought. He showed me the petition. Jessica claimed I had forgotten to pay bills multiple times, false. Left the stove on repeatedly, false. Gotten lost driving to familiar locations, false. Made erratic financial decisions, false. Shown aggressive and paranoid behavior, false. Supporting documentation included affidavit from Mark witnessing my confusion, affidavit from Jessica's friend witnessing my memory problems, medical assessment from Dr. Martin Chin diagnosing early-stage dementia, bank statements showing erratic withdrawals. Show me the bank statements, I said. David slid them across the table. I pulled out my reading glasses, the same glasses I'd use to review 10,000 credit applications. These are my accounts. David looked up. What? Look at the account number. 4782-9163-4421. My primary checking account is 4782-9163-4418. This is 3 digits off. I flipped through the statements. These transactions are fake. See this withdrawal of $8,500 on March 3rd? I was in Chicago that day for my grandson's birthday. I have the flight records. David made notes. How do you remember your account number from memory? Bankers don't guess about numbers, David. I memorized that number in 1985 when I opened the account. The last 4 digits, 4418. April 4th, 1918, my father's birthday. He looked impressed. What else do you see? I pulled out my red flag notebook and started writing. Flag 6, fabricated bank statements, forged account number. Flag 7, false medical diagnosis. Flag 8, coordinated witness statements. Flag 9, strategic timing 3 years after Helen's death, targeting vulnerable period. This is fraud, David. Guardianship fraud. I've seen it a dozen times in my career, but I never thought my own daughter. I stopped. Professional detachment failing for the first time in 40 years. David leaned forward. Richard, if this guardianship goes through, Jessica gets control of everything. Your accounts, your house, your medical decisions. You'd need her permission to buy a cup of coffee. What's the hearing date? 2 weeks. March 28th. I stood and walked to the window. 2 weeks to dismantle my daughter's carefully constructed lie. Then we have 2 weeks to build a countercase. What do you need? I pulled out my phone. First, I need documentation proving I'm cognitively sound. Real medical evaluation from Dr. Williams. Second, I need to prove these bank statements are forged. Third, I need to find out who Dr. Martin Chan is. David nodded. I'll subpoena the medical records and get a forensic accountant. No need for the accountant. I'll do it myself. That afternoon, I did what I'd done for 40 years. I investigated. But first, I needed my own medical evaluation. Dr. Sarah Williams had been my physician for 12 years. She'd seen me through Helen's death, through my retirement, through every annual physical. Richard, what's this about? She reviewed the guardianship petition on her tablet. Jessica is claiming you have dementia? Apparently. She pulled up my last physical from 8 months ago. Her face showed disbelief as she read the claim. Your cognitive screening was perfect. Montreal Cognitive Assessment Score, 28 out of 30. That's above average for your age. Can you do another evaluation? Full cognitive panel. She nodded immediately. Of course. Then she looked at me, confused. But Richard, why would Jessica do this? I thought about how to answer. Money makes people do terrible things, Sarah. I've seen it for 40 years. She spent the next 2 hours putting me through cognitive tests. Memory recall, problem solving, executive function, visual spatial processing. When we finished, she showed me the results. Richard, you're in the 98th percentile for cognitive function in your age group. Your memory is actually better than mine, and I'm 20 years younger. Can you document that formally? I need it for court. I'll prepare a comprehensive report by tomorrow. But Richard, this is elder abuse. You know that, right? I knew. I'd investigated financial elder abuse cases at the bank, seen families torn apart by greed. I just never thought it would be my family. That afternoon, I did what I'd done for 40 years. I investigated further. I called Dr. Martin Chen's office. Voicemail. Generic message. No call back. I searched the California Medical Board database. No Dr. Martin Chen licensed in California. Flag 10. Fake doctor. I pulled up the forged bank statements and cross-referenced them with my actual accounts. My real March statements showed automatic bill payments, utilities, insurance, property tax, all on time. Regular deposits, pension, Social Security, investment dividends. Normal spending, groceries, gas, restaurant meals. No erratic behavior whatsoever. The forged statements showed missed bill payments, random large withdrawals, duplicate payments, overdraft fees, classic fraud pattern. Create chaos on paper to justify intervention. I documented everything in my red flag notebook with the precision of 10,000 fraud investigations. Then I called my bank, First National, where I'd worked for 40 years. This is Richard Thompson, employee number 4782. I need to speak with someone in fraud prevention. 3 minutes later, Mr. Thompson, this is Sarah Chun in fraud. How can I help you? Sarah, I need you to run a trace on a suspicious document. Someone created fake bank statements using a modified version of my account number. I heard typing. Send me the documents. I'll have them analyzed within 24 hours. One more thing. I need a full audit of all my accounts for the past 6 months. Any unusual activity, any access attempts, any authorized user additions. Of course, though I should mention, there was an inquiry 3 months ago. Someone called asking to be added as an authorized user on your accounts. Claimed to be your daughter with power of attorney. My jaw tightened. Did you add her? No, sir. Your accounts are flagged as high security from your employment. We told her she needed to come in person with you and proper documentation. Who made the inquiry? A Jessica Thompson. Flag 11. Attempted account access denied, then escalated to guardianship petition. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. I spent the rest of the afternoon analyzing the forged documents with forensic precision. The fake medical report from Dr. Martin Chun had telltale signs. Generic clinic letterhead, no specific address. Medical terminology used incorrectly. Diagnosis codes that didn't match the described condition. Signature that looked computer-generated. Flag 13. Amateurish forgery, medical terminology errors. I'd seen better forgeries from Nigerian email scammers. The fake bank statements were more sophisticated but still flawed. Font didn't match First National's actual statements. Account number checksum was wrong. I designed that algorithm in 1992. Transaction codes that hadn't been used since 2018. Routing number belonged to a different bank. Flag 14. Professional forgery attempt, but wrong internal codes. Someone had help. These weren't documents Jessica could create alone. I called David. The forged statements were created by someone with banking knowledge, but not current knowledge. The transaction codes are outdated. What does that tell you? Either Jessica hired someone who used to work in banking, or Mark has banking experience I don't know about. I'll run background checks on both of them. 2 hours later, David called back. Richard, Mark worked at Pacific Credit Union from 2012 to 2015. Fired for violating disclosure policies. There it was. Mark had access to statement templates. Had enough knowledge to create convincing forgeries, but not enough knowledge to make them perfect. Flag 15. Mark's banking background plus termination for policy violations. David, subpoena Mark's employment records from Pacific Credit Union. I want to see why he was really fired. That evening, Jessica called me. Hi, Dad. Just checking in. How are you feeling? I could hear the false sweetness, the concerned daughter act. I let her play it out. 40 years of fraud investigations taught me. Let them talk. They always reveal more than they intend. I'm fine, Jessica. How's Nathan? My grandson, 8 years old. The only reason I'd maintained any relationship with her at all. He's good. Listen, Dad, I wanted to talk to you about something. Mark and I have been worried about you living alone. We think it might be time to consider maybe some help around the house? What kind of help? Well, someone to help with bills, maybe cooking, managing your medications. I don't take any medications, Jessica. You know that. Right, but, Dad, you're 67. It's normal to need a little help. I watched her work, planting seeds, establishing narrative. Jessica, when's the last time you visited this house? She hesitated. I could hear the pause stretching through the phone line. Classic tell. 2 weeks ago, we had coffee. I waited. Let her hear the silence. Let her feel it. And before that, Jessica, how many weeks? Another pause. Longer this time. I don't know, Dad. A few weeks? Why are you asking me this? I could hear her realize the trap. Too late. Just checking my memory. You mentioned I've been forgetting things. I never said that. No? Then why did you file a guardianship petition claiming I have dementia? Silence. Then, Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. March 5th. You filed a petition in Los Angeles County Superior Court. Case number PG 2024-03847. Claiming I'm incompetent to manage my own affairs. Her voice changed. Harder. Who told you that? The court notified me, as is legally required. Dad, listen. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're getting paranoid. You're confused. We're just trying to help. Who is Dr. Martin Chin? Another pause. Your doctor, the one who evaluated you. I've never met Dr. Martin Chun. He doesn't exist, Jessica. You don't remember meeting him because of your condition. My condition? I had a full cognitive evaluation this afternoon. Dr. Williams says I'm in the 98th percentile from my age group. Perfect memory. Perfect executive function. Dad, you're not thinking clearly. The stress is making you confused. Mark and I only want what's best. What you want is $2.3 million in assets you didn't earn. Silence. Dad, I reviewed the petition. You also want control of my medical decisions, my living situation, and my legal affairs. That's not helping with bills. Jessica, that's total control. You don't understand. I understand fraud. I investigated it for 40 years. And this is textbook guardianship fraud. Fake medical diagnosis, forged bank statements, fabricated witness statements, and a fake doctor. Her voice went cold. You can't prove any of that. Actually, I can. Dr. Martin Chin doesn't exist in the California Medical Board database. The bank statements you submitted use a fake account number. And I have documentation proving every single claim in your petition is false. Dad, if you fight this, you're just going to embarrass yourself. The court will see you're paranoid and confused, and they'll grant the guardianship anyway. Is that what your attorney told you? Goodbye, Dad. I'll see you at the hearing. She hung up. I sat in my study, in the same chair where Helen, and I used to have coffee every morning before she died. For 40 years, I'd been calm, professional, detached, but this was my daughter, and she was willing to destroy me for money. The next morning, David called. Richard, we have a problem. Jessica's attorney is Michael Brennan. Very aggressive. He specializes in guardianship cases. What's the success rate? 87% of his petitions are granted. And the other 13%? Cases where he withdraws because the evidence isn't there. Then we make sure the evidence isn't there. What do you need? I open my red flag notebook. I need 3 things. First, get me in front of a judge for an emergency hearing before the March 28 date. Second, subpoena all medical records from Dr. Martin Chan. Third, get a handwriting expert to analyze the forged bank statements. The judge won't grant an emergency hearing without cause. The cause is attempted fraud on the court. Jessica submitted forged documents. That's a crime. David was quiet. That's a nuclear option, Richard. You're accusing your daughter of criminal fraud. I'm not accusing. I'm documenting. Let the evidence speak. 3 days later, David called with Pacific Credit Union's records. Richard, you need to hear this. Mark wasn't just fired for policy violations. He was terminated for accessing customer accounts without authorization and attempting to transfer funds. Did they press charges? No. The credit union settled internally to avoid publicity. Mark paid restitution and signed an NDA. So he's done this before. Exactly. He's escalated from unauthorized account access to full-scale guardianship fraud. I added to my red flag notebook. Flag 16, Mark's prior fraud history, pattern escalation. David, can we use his prior termination in court? The NDA makes it tricky, but if he testifies, we can impeach his credibility. He'd have to admit to prior financial misconduct. Then let's make sure he testifies. 1 week before the hearing, I received a visit. Mark, my son-in-law. I watched him through the window before answering the door. Nervous, fidgeting, classic signs of desperation. 40 years of fraud interviews taught me. Desperate people make mistakes. Richard, we need to talk. I let him into my study. The same study where I'd caught $47 million in fraud over my career. The same study where I'd interrogated loan fraudsters, embezzlers, identity thieves. Mark was just another case file now. Talk. He sat down, nervous. Not the confident man who'd been taking notes on my incompetence. This has gotten out of hand. Jessica just wants to help. By declaring me incompetent? You don't understand the pressure we're under. The business is failing. We took out loans. There it was, the real story. I didn't interrupt. Let him confess. 40 years taught me. Stay silent. Let them fill the void. We're $200,000 in debt. Business loans at 18% interest. We're going to lose the house. Richard, Nathan's college fund is gone. We're drowning. And you thought you'd solve it by stealing my money. Not stealing. Borrowing. We'd pay you back. With what money? Your failing business. How much do you owe? He looked at his hands. 200,000. Business loans. We thought the company would take off, but... And you thought you'd solve it by taking my money. It's not like that. What's it like, Mark? Jessica thought. With Helen gone, you don't need all that money. You're alone. We have Nathan to think about, college funds, the future. So you decided to have me declared incompetent and seize control of my accounts. The guardianship was just to make it legal. We weren't going to hurt you. Just redirect some funds. Temporarily. I pulled out my notebook and wrote, Flag 12, admission of intent. Redirect funds temporarily. Mark watched me write. What are you doing? What I've done for 40 years. Documenting fraud. His face went pale. You're recording this? No, but you just admitted that the guardianship petition is fraudulent. That you intended to steal my money under legal cover. I didn't mean... Richard, please. If this goes to court, Jessica could go to jail. She should have thought of that before she forged medical documents and bank statements. Mark looked desperate. I know it sounds crazy, but we had projections. The business was supposed to generate $500,000 in the first year. We had clients lined up. What kind of business? Marketing consulting. Digital strategy for small businesses. I pulled out my notebook. 40 years of evaluating business loans taught me the patterns. How many years of industry experience do you have? 3 years. How many clients did you actually close? 2. But we had 12 in the pipeline. 12 prospects isn't 12 clients. What was your burn rate? He hesitated. About $25,000 a month. So you burned through $300,000 in your first year with only 2 paying clients? The market was tougher than we thought. The market was fine. Your business plan was terrible. Any banker would have told you that, which is why you went to private lenders at 18% interest. Mark's face reddened. We thought. You didn't think. You gambled. And when you lost, you decided to recoup your losses by defrauding me. It wasn't supposed to be fraud. The guardianship was just a legal framework. A legal framework based on forged documents. That's fraud, Mark. How did you know the documents were forged? Because you used outdated transaction codes. I designed that system in 1992. We updated it in 2018. Your statements show codes we haven't used in 6 years. His face went pale. I didn't know. No. You thought your 3 years at Pacific Credit Union gave you enough knowledge to fool a banker with 40 years of experience. That was your first mistake. I leaned forward. What was your second mistake? I don't. Your second mistake was thinking I wouldn't find out about your termination from Pacific Credit Union for unauthorized account access. Mark went white. How did you? I'm a banker, Mark. I know how to run background checks. I know how to pull employment records. And I know that your prior fraud makes this a pattern, not a mistake. What do you want? We'll drop the petition. We'll disappear. Just don't press charges. I looked at him. This man who'd married my daughter, who'd given me a grandson, who was now willing to destroy me for $200,000. And I thought about all the fraudsters I caught over 40 years. The ones who begged, the ones who promised a change, the ones who never did. Here's what's going to happen. You and Jessica will appear at the hearing and withdraw the petition. You'll admit the medical documentation was fabricated. You'll apologize to court. And then I'll decide whether to file criminal charges. Richard, please. Get out of my house, Mark. He stood, trembling. You're making a mistake. Jessica will never forgive you. Maybe not, but she'll learn that actions have consequences. Something you both should have learned a long time ago. He left. I sat in my study and added one final note to my red flag notebook. Flag 17. Subject attempted negotiation to avoid consequences. Classic fraud pattern. 40 years of investigations. This one hurt the most, but the procedure was the same. I sat alone in my study and thought about Helen. She would have been heartbroken, But she also would have understood. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my study, reviewing my red flag notebook. 17 documented red flags. 40 years of experience distilled into evidence. But this wasn't just another case file. This was my daughter. I thought about Jessica as a child. 8 years old, crying because she'd lied about breaking a vase. I'd made her confess. Made her understand that lying had consequences. She'd learned then, or so I thought. I pulled out a photo from my desk drawer. Jessica's graduation from college. Helen, and I beaming with pride. Jessica with her whole future ahead of her. What happened? When did money become more important than integrity? I knew the answer. It happened gradually. Small compromises. Small justifications. Until the line between right and wrong blurred. I'd seen it in fraud cases for 40 years. Good people making bad choices. Justifying each step until they were criminals. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Grandpa, can we get ice cream this weekend? My grandson, innocent, unaware that his mother was trying to steal from his grandfather. I texted back, of course. Saturday at 2 o'clock. Our usual spot. Nathan deserved better than this. Deserved a mother who made honest choices. Deserved a family not torn apart by greed. But he also deserved a grandfather who stood up for what was right, even when it hurt. The hearing was scheduled for March 28th at 9 a.m. I arrived at 8:30 with David and a briefcase full of evidence. Jessica and Mark were already there with their attorney, Michael Brennan. I watched them from across the hallway. Jessica looked thin, stressed. Mark couldn't meet my eyes. Good. Let them feel the weight of what they'd done. Brennan approached David. We'd like to discuss a withdrawal. David looked at me. I nodded. We went into a conference room. The four of us plus Brennan. Brennan laid it out. My clients wish to withdraw the petition. There's been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I opened my briefcase and pulled out my red flag notebook. Your client submitted forged medical records from a non-existent doctor, fabricated bank statements with a fake account number, and made false statements under oath. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud. I slid the notebook across the table. 17 documented red flags. Each one a separate violation. Each one evidence of criminal intent. Brennan's face went red. Mr. Thompson, I was not aware. You didn't verify? 40 years as a banker taught me to verify everything. You should try it. I pulled out Dr. Williams' medical report. Real cognitive evaluation, showing I'm in the 98th percentile for my age. Not incompetent, not declining, sharper than most people half my age. Then the bank audit from First National. Complete audit of all my accounts showing perfect financial management. No missed payments. No erratic behavior. No sign of cognitive decline. Then the California Medical Board search results. No Dr. Martin Chin licensed in this state. Your medical expert doesn't exist. Finally, the forensic analysis of the forged bank statements. Account number checksums that don't match. Transaction codes that haven't been used since 2018. Routing numbers from the wrong bank. Amateur forgeries that any banker could spot. Brennan stared at the evidence. My clients didn't inform me. Your clients lied to you, just like they lied to the court. And you didn't verify. Jessica spoke up, her voice shaking. Dad, please. We'll drop everything. Just let this go. I looked at my daughter, the girl I'd raised to be honest, the woman who'd forged documents to steal from me. You're going to do more than drop it. You're going to stand in front of that judge and admit what you did. I can't do that. They'll charge me with fraud. They might, but if you don't, I'll file charges myself. And I have 40 years of fraud investigation experience and a notebook full of documented evidence. Brennan whispered urgently to Jessica. She started crying. What do you want, Dad? I thought about 40 years of catching fraudsters. 40 years of enforcing consequences. I want you to understand consequences. I want you to face what you did. And I want to make sure you never do this to anyone else. And if I confess, what happens? That's between you and the DA. but it's better than me pressing charges with all this evidence. Brennan interrupted. Mr. Thompson, surely we can reach some agreement. No agreement. Jessica admits what she did in open court, or I file criminal charges this afternoon. Those are the only two options. Mark started to speak. Richard, you don't get a vote, Mark. You're the one who forged the bank statements using codes from your old job at Pacific Credit Union. You're looking at federal fraud charges on top of state charges. Mark went pale. How did you? I told you. 40 years as a banker. I know how to investigate. At 9 a.m., we entered the courtroom. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a reputation for zero tolerance of fraud. Perfect. Case PG 2024-03847. Petition for guardianship of Richard Thompson. Are all parties present? Brennan stood. Your Honor, Petitioner Jessica Thompson wishes to withdraw the petition and address the court. The judge raised an eyebrow. Proceed. Jessica stood, trembling. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the table. Your Honor, I filed this petition under false pretenses. The medical documentation I submitted was fabricated. My father is not incompetent. I was in financial distress and made a terrible mistake. The courtroom went silent. Mark grabbed her arm, whispering urgently, "What are you doing?" She pulled away from him. "I'm telling the truth." Judge Morrison's voice was ice. "Ms. Thompson, are you admitting you submitted false documents to this court?" "Yes, Your Honor." Mark stood up. "Your Honor, my wife is confused. She's under extreme stress." "Sit down, Mr. Carter." The judge snapped. "I didn't ask you to speak." Mark sat, his face red. "Ms. Thompson," the judge continued, "do you understand that submitting false documents to this court is perjury and fraud?" "Yes, Your Honor." Jessica's voice was barely a whisper. "Speak up." "Yes, Your Honor. I understand." The judge looked at me. "Mr. Thompson, what is your position?" I stood, pulling out my red flag notebook. 40 years of fraud investigations. This was what it had been building toward. Your Honor, I'm a retired senior vice president from First National Bank. I spent 40 years investigating fraud. I personally caught $47 million in fraudulent transactions during my career. I walked to the clerk and handed over my evidence folder. This case bears all the hallmarks of guardianship fraud. I've documented 17 separate red flags. Each one is evidence of criminal intent. I open the folder. Red flag 1. Forged medical documentation from a non-existent doctor. Dr. Martin Chun does not exist in the California Medical Board database. Jessica started crying harder. Red flag 2. Fabricated bank statements using a fake account number with an incorrect checksum. I designed that checksum algorithm in 1992. Mark went pale. Red flag 3 through 7. False witness statements, fake diagnosis codes, forged signatures, manipulated financial records, and fabricated evidence of incompetence. The judge was reviewing the documents, her expression growing darker. Red flag 8. Mr. Mark Carter's prior termination from Pacific Credit Union for unauthorized account access. He used his banking knowledge to create these forgeries. Mark shot to his feet. "That's sealed. You can't." "Sit down, Mr. Carter." Judge Morrison's voice cut through the courtroom like a whip. Mark sat, trembling now. I continued. Red flag 9 through 15. Coordinated timeline of establishing incompetence through false documentation. My daughter began this fraud 3 months ago when she failed to be added as an authorized user on my accounts. I pulled out the bank's fraud report. Red flag 16. Attempted account access in December. When denied, they escalated to guardianship fraud. Jessica was sobbing into her hands now. Mark looked like he was going to be sick. Red flag 17. Mr. Carter's admission to me that this was a deliberate scheme to redirect funds to cover $200,000 in gambling debts and failed business loans. I closed the notebook. Your Honor, I'm requesting the court refer this matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation. This is elder abuse, attempted fraud, perjury, and forgery. Judge Morrison looked at Jessica and Mark like they were insects. Mr. Carter, stand up. Mark stood, shaking. Did you forge these bank statements? Mark looked at Brennan. Brennan looked away. Mr. Carter, I asked you a question. I had help from someone who, the statements were meant to show. That's a yes. Did you use knowledge from your employment at Pacific Credit Union to create fraudulent documents? Mark's voice cracked. Yes, Your Honor. Did you know that the medical diagnosis was fabricated? We needed. Yes or no, Mr. Carter? Yes. He was crying now, too. The judge turned to Jessica. Ms. Thompson, did you knowingly file a petition based on false evidence to gain control of your father's assets? Jessica nodded, unable to speak. Out loud, Ms. Thompson. Yes, Your Honor. I did. Why? Jessica looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Because we were desperate. Because we owed money. Because I thought he had so much and we needed it so badly and you decided to have your own father declared incompetent and steal from him. I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught. Judge Morrison's voice was pure contempt. Ms. Thompson, I've been on this bench for 23 years. I've seen children steal from parents. I've seen caregivers abuse the elderly. I've seen fraud and perjury and elder abuse. She held up my red flag notebook. But I have never seen such meticulous, calculated, premeditated fraud attempted against a parent. Your father documented 17 separate instances of your criminal behavior. 17. Jessica collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Mark was standing there, trembling, his face white as paper. Mr. Thompson, the judge looked at me. You presented overwhelming evidence of criminal fraud. What would you like the court to do? I thought about Helen, about the woman I'd raised Jessica to be, about the choice I had to make. I want them to face consequences, Your Honor, but I also want my grandson to have parents. I'm requesting the court refer this to the DA with a recommendation for a plea agreement, probation, fines, restitution, and community service. No prison time if they cooperate fully. Judge Morrison was surprised. That's extremely generous, Mr. Thompson. It's not generosity, Your Honor. It's fatherhood. My daughter needs to learn that actions have consequences, but my grandson needs a mother. The judge nodded slowly. Ms. Thompson, Mr. Carter, you are extraordinarily fortunate that Mr. Thompson is a better person than you deserve. She signed an order. This matter is referred to the district attorney for criminal investigation. I'm issuing an emergency protective order. Neither of you may have any contact with Mr. Thompson's financial, medical, or legal affairs. Any attempt to do so will result in immediate arrest. She looked at them with disgust. Petition denied. You're both ordered to surrender your passports and remain in California pending criminal charges. Get out of my courtroom. Gavel. Outside the courtroom, Mark tried to walk past me. I stepped in front of him. Mr. Carter. He looked up, his eyes red. What do you want? You destroyed us. Are you happy now? Destroyed you? You destroyed yourselves. You forged documents. You lied under oath. You tried to steal $2.3 million from me. We were desperate. You were greedy and stupid. Did you really think you could fool a banker with 40 years of experience using transaction codes from 2018? Mark's face crumpled. I didn't know they were outdated. I thought I used the templates from my old job, and that's why you failed. You had just enough knowledge to be dangerous, but not enough to be successful. 3 years at a credit union doesn't match 40 years at a senior level. What happens to me now? I pulled out a business card. David had given it to me, a criminal defense attorney. You're going to need this. The DA is filing federal fraud charges. Bank fraud, wire fraud, forgery. You're looking at 18 to 24 months if you take a plea. Mark took the card with shaking hands. Jessica said you'd help us. I did help you. I recommended probation instead of prison, but that's for Jessica. You committed federal crimes. That's out of my hands. I have children. So did I. I had a daughter I raised to be honest and principled. You turned her into a criminal. Mark's voice rose. She made her own choices. After you taught her to steal, you were fired from Pacific Credit Union for the same thing, unauthorized account access. You didn't learn. You escalated. He started to walk away. Mark. He turned back. When you're sitting in prison, thinking about how you got there, remember this. You didn't fail because you got caught. You failed because you chose to become a criminal. That was your choice. No one else's. He walked away, shoulders shaking. Across the hallway, Jessica tried to approach me. She was a mess. Mascara running. Hands trembling. The daughter I'd raised was gone. In her place was a woman who just publicly admitted to trying to destroy her father. Dad, please. I'm sorry. I was desperate. You were greedy. We could lose everything. The house, the business. You made those choices. You took out loans at 18% interest. You gambled on a business with no experience. You burned $25,000 a month with only 2 clients. Those are your consequences. What about Nathan? He needs his grandfather. That stopped me. My grandson, 8 years old, innocent in all this. Nathan can call me anytime. He can visit anytime. But you stay away. For how long? Until I decide you've learned what consequences mean. She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Don't touch me, Jessica. You try to have me declared incompetent. You forged medical documents saying I have dementia. You were willing to take away every right I have, my money, my home, my freedom, my dignity, for $200,000. I know. Do you? Do you understand that if that guardianship had gone through, you would have controlled whether I could buy food, whether I could leave my house, whether I could make my own medical decisions? I wasn't going to. You were going to do exactly that. That's what guardianship means. And you knew it, because I taught you better. She was sobbing now, collapsed against the wall. David approached me quietly. The DA will likely file charges within the week. Fraud, perjury, elder abuse. Jessica's looking at 2 to 3 years. What are her chances of avoiding prison? First offense? Good behavior? If she cooperates fully and shows genuine remorse, probably plead down to probation, fines, restitution. And Mark? Federal charges. Bank fraud. He'll do time. Maybe 18 months if he pleads. I looked at my daughter, crying on the floor of the courthouse. What would you recommend, David? He looked at Jessica. That's your daughter, Richard. I can't answer that. Yes, you can. As my attorney, what would you recommend? He sighed. Let the DA make the offer. If Jessica shows she's genuinely changed, if she gets help, if she takes responsibility, then consider supporting a lenient plea. But make her earn it. Don't let her off easy just because she's your daughter. I nodded. That's what I thought. 2 weeks later, the DA offered a plea deal. Jessica would plead guilty to attempted fraud, pay $15,000 in fines, complete 200 hours of community service, and be placed on probation for 3 years. No prison time. In exchange, I'd have to agree not to pursue civil litigation. I sat in my study with the plea agreement. 40 years of professional detachment said, take the deal. She faces consequences. You're protected. Move on. But this was my daughter. I thought about Helen, what she'd want. She'd want Jessica to face consequences. But she'd also want Nathan to have a mother. I called David. Accept the plea. But add one condition. Jessica completes a financial literacy course and submits to annual credit monitoring. I want to make sure she doesn't do this to anyone else. That's generous, Richard. No, that's fatherhood. There's a difference. 6 months later, I was having coffee in my study when the doorbell rang. Jessica, thinner, older, tired. Can I come in? I let her in. We sat in silence for a minute. I finished the community service, she said, working at a senior center, helping elderly people manage their finances. Ironic. Yeah. She looked at her hands. I've been meeting people who were actually victimized by guardianship fraud. Real victims. People who lost everything. What did you learn? That I almost became one of those predators. That I was willing to destroy my own father for money I didn't earn. I waited. The financial literacy course made me realize how bad Mark and I were at managing money. We made terrible decisions. And instead of facing them, we tried to steal from you. Where's Mark? We separated. He wanted to fight the charges, blame you. I realized I can't be married to someone like that. And Nathan, he misses you. He asks about you every day. I thought about my grandson, 8 years old, caught in the middle of his mother's fraud. Tell him to call me. We'll get ice cream. Jessica's eyes filled with tears. Really? Nathan did nothing wrong. He shouldn't pay for your mistakes. She nodded. What about us? I don't know, Jessica. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You forged documents. You lied under oath. Those aren't things I can just forget. I know. I want you to know I'm getting help. Therapy. Financial counseling. I'm trying to be better. That's good. Keep doing that. Can I ask you something? What? Why didn't you send me to prison? You had the evidence. I thought about 40 years of fraud investigations. All the people I'd caught. All the consequences I'd enforced. Because prison wouldn't teach you anything. You needed to face what you did, understand the harm, and choose to change. If I'd sent you to prison, you'd just be angry and blame me. This way, you have to live with your choices. She wiped her eyes. I don't deserve your mercy. No, but Nathan deserves a mother who's learned from her mistakes. We sat in silence. Then she stood. Thank you, Dad, for the chance to be better. Don't thank me yet. Earn it. She left. I sat in my study and pulled out my red flag notebook. 40 years of fraud investigations. Thousands of cases. Millions of dollars. But this was the hardest one. 3 months later, the DA called me. Mr. Thompson, I wanted to update you on Jessica's progress. She's completed 75 hours of community service at Oak Grove Senior Center. How's she doing? Better than expected. The center director called me personally. Said Jessica's been exceptional. She helped 3 residents identify and avoid financial scams in the past month alone. I thought about that. My daughter, who tried to scam me, now protecting others from scams. There's something else, the DA continued. She asked permission to speak at a guardianship fraud prevention seminar next month. Wants to tell her story as a warning to others. Did you approve it? That's up to you. As the victim, you have the right to veto. I thought about 40 years of fraud prevention, all the seminars I'd given, all the warnings I'd issued. Let her speak. If she's genuine about changing, this is how she proves it. 1 year later, Jessica completed probation, pay her fines, divorced Mark, started a new job as a financial counselor helping people avoid debt. She sent me updates every month, not asking for anything, just letting me know she was still trying. Month 3, helped Mrs. Chin identify a fake IRS scam, save her $8,000. Month 6, gave testimony at Mark's fraud trial. He got 18 months. Month 9, promoted to senior counselor, now training others. Month 12, spoke at statewide elder abuse prevention conference. 300 people attended. Each message was factual, professional, like a quarterly report, like something I would have written. She was learning. She called me once a month. We talked about Nathan, about her work, about the weather. We didn't talk about the guardianship. That wound was still too fresh. But Nathan visited every Saturday. We got ice cream, went to the park. I taught him about saving money, about making good decisions, about consequences. One Saturday, he asked me, "Grandpa, why doesn't Mom come with us?" I thought about how to answer, about truth and protection and lessons. Your mom made some mistakes. She's working very hard to fix them. But sometimes when people hurt each other, it takes time to heal. Did she hurt you? Yes. Do you still love her? That was the question. Did I still love the daughter who tried to steal my life? I love who she was, and I hope she can become that person again. But love doesn't mean forgetting what someone did. It means holding them accountable while hoping they change. Nathan thought about that. That sounds hard. It is, but that's what family means sometimes. Nathan visited every Saturday. Sometimes Jessica would sit in her car in the parking lot, watching from a distance. I pretended not to notice. But Nathan noticed. Grandpa, Mom's here again. I know. Why doesn't she come say hi? Because I asked her to give us space. And she's respecting that. That seemed sad. It was sad. But it was necessary. Trust had to be earned back slowly, carefully, with proof, not promises. 18 months later, Jessica sent me a different kind of message. Dad, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. I was offered a job at Pacific Northwest Bank, senior position in their fraud prevention division, because of my unique perspective on financial fraud. I turned it down, not because I couldn't do it, but because I realized I'd rather help people who are struggling than chase people who are stealing. I'm staying at the counseling center. The pay is terrible. But yesterday, I helped a single mother avoid a payday loan trap that would have cost her $12,000 in interest. That felt better than any banking job ever could. I thought you'd want to know. I read it 3 times. Then I called her. Jessica, it's your father. Shocked silence. I hadn't called her in 18 months. Dad, I got your message about the banking job. Oh, I wasn't asking for your opinion. I just wanted to tell you. I know, but I'm giving it anyway. You made the right choice. I could hear her voice crack. Really? Helping people is harder than catching them, but it's more important. You're learning that. I'm trying to be like you, Dad. Document everything. Trust but verify. Protect people. You're becoming better than me, Jessica. I spent 40 years catching fraudsters. You're spending your time preventing people from becoming fraudsters in the first place. She was crying now. Can I see you? Not just watch from the parking lot. Actually see you? I thought about it. 18 months of her respecting boundaries. 18 months of consistent effort. 18 months of proof. Saturday, 2 p.m. The park. Bring Nathan. We'll all get ice cream. Together? Together? 2 years later, I updated my will. My assets would be placed in a trust for Nathan's education. Jessica could not access it, could not control it, could not touch it, but she could earn back a relationship with me. Through time, through changed behavior, through demonstrated integrity. And she had. The will included one other provision. $50,000 to Oak Grove Senior Center in Jessica's name to fund their fraud prevention program. Let her good work be recognized. Let her redemption be documented. David reviewed the trust documents. This is very specific, very protective. 40 years as a banker taught me to protect assets, but Helen taught me to protect relationships. I'm trying to do both. Do you think Jessica's really changed? I pulled out my red flag notebook and flipped to the back pages. Redemption analysis, Jessica Thompson. Green flag 1, completed probation without violations. Green flag 2, maintain employment in helping profession. Green flag 3, consistent communication without demands. Green flag 4, helped 47 people avoid financial fraud in 2 years. Green flag 5, voluntarily testified against Mark despite personal cost. Green flag 6, turned down higher paying job to stay in helping role. Green flag 7, respected boundaries for 18 months. Green flag 8, pattern of documented change behavior. Look at this. I showed David the notebook. 40 years taught me to document red flags. Now I'm documenting green flags. He smiled. That's not banking, Richard. That's fatherhood. Maybe they're not so different. Both require careful analysis. Both require protecting what matters. Both require hope that people can change. Do you think they can? Really change? I thought about all the fraudsters I caught who never changed. And I thought about my daughter who had. Most don't, but Jessica did. I have 2 years of evidence to prove it. Final entry, red flag notebook, Richard Thompson. Case, Jessica Thompson, guardianship fraud attempt. Outcome, fraud prevented. Criminal charges filed. Plea accepted. Red flags documented. 12. Assets protected. $2.3 million. Relationship status, rebuilding conditional. Lesson learned. 40 years investigating fraud prepared me for everything except investigating my own daughter. But the same principles apply. Document everything. Trust but verify. Protect assets. Enforce consequences. And sometimes, the hardest investigations are the ones closest to home. Richard Thompson, Senior Vice President, retired, First National Bank. Employee number 4782. 40 years of service.